When a giant lizard monster is slain in the middle of the city streets, cleanup crew #3 arrives on the scene to start dismantling and harvesting the creature. Kafka, a 32-year-old, is tasked with cleaning up the entrails of the beast, much to his dismay. It turns out that what he truly wants is to hunt down and take out the kaiju that plague the city, but he ended up settling for his current job instead. Are you excited for the recap already? Let's do this. The next day, he's introduced to the new kid who asks him why he never became a member of the defense force. Well, sometimes you need to know your limits and stay within them. The kid Ichikawa isn't having it. He'll never know what that's like because he's never going to quit. He'd rather die than settle. Back at the creature site, they're both assigned to entrail duty. They have lunch together, but the kid can barely stomach anything, prompting Kafka to toss him supplements to drink so he doesn't pass out. That night, Ichikawa lets him know that they recently raised the force's cutoff age to 32, which would make Kafka eligible again, and hopefully this time, he won't fail the entrance exam. Ichikawa thought he still saw some determination behind the geezer's eyes. When Kafka goes to thank the kid, he notices something behind his eyes. Well, his whole head, really. A spider-like kaiju bursting from beneath the concrete, ready to swallow the kid whole. Leaping into action, Kafka manages to tackle him out of the way, and after begging him to run and save himself, he grabs a metal pipe to attract the monster's attention. After losing his childhood home as a kid, he and his friend Mina promised each other they would join the defense force and never let anything like that happen again. The creature knocks him to the side after his feeble attack. Just when it looks like he'll be on the opposite end of entrail duty, the Ichikawa comes back. He can't quit before he even begins. Well, now they're both screwed. Fortunately, it was merely an illusion as a white tiger leaps towards the spidery kaiju with the grace of a Las Vegas stage performance circa 1984, followed by the Defense Force Captain Mina's explosive rounds. In the hospital, Ichikawa thanks Kafka for saving his life. Right before he opens the curtain separating their beds, a strange insect-like creature expresses its satisfaction in finding him, that being Kafka, as it enters his mouth. Ichikawa opens the curtain to discover Kafka's metamorphoses. Mina is informed of a recent kaiju sighting inside a hospital and readies the 3rd Division to move in on its location. Meanwhile, Ichikawa and Kafka try to calm down the old man who snitched, only to discover Kafka is stronger than he thinks. The only way out is through the window. Seeing as trying to slide it open obliterates the entire row. The two of them begin to panic as they race through the streets, deciding to head to the evacuation zone to avoid any unwanted casualties. Before they get there, however, Kafka senses another kaiju, the same type as yesterday's attacker, which begins causing chaos in the distance. Mina splits her convoy in two, following this development, and heads towards the new threat. Nearby, a mother is stuck beneath some furniture, her daughter crying, unable to help, while the kaiju looms overhead. Before it can attack, the glowing blue fist of the newborn kaiju hybrid rocks the spidery freak, sending it flying. Kafka tries to calm the girl down while he saves her mother. Ichikawa gets there just in time to scoop them up as the creature returns. Kafka winds up, getting ready for a single blow, one punch, before releasing a massive amount of energy that permeates the chitinous creature, launching it into the air while it explodes into tiny chunks, surprising the kaiju slayer and obliterating his foe, which returns to the earth, raining blood. Despite her fear, the little girl thanks the killer kaiju killer, reminding him of his childhood with Mina. For a second, he loses the armor-like exterior, revealing his head underneath, now determined more than ever to follow his dreams. Ichikawa and Kafka dip before Mina arrives on the scene. She vows to the little girl that she'll kill every last kaiju, but she doesn't get the response she's hoping for. The girl asks her not to hurt the good kaiju who saved her, which leaves Mina gobsmacked. After 3 months, the Defense Force is still hunting Kafka, though he and Ichikawa have returned to work in the meantime. One day, the entrance exams arrive in the mail, and it looks like Kafka finally passed. The first pass of written exams, trying to hide his kaiju form for the physical, is not going to be easy, but at 32, it's his last chance. When the two arrive at the next exam, they're pestered by a young woman who, despite a mostly empty lot, wants the same spot they parked the company car in. If they won't move it, then she will. Taking off her Inspector Gadget-ass trench coat, revealing a strength-augmenting suit underneath, She then grabs the van and tosses it into another parking spot. She introduces herself as examinee number 2016, Kikoru Shinomiya. Kafka walks over and picks the van back up, shocking the arrogant examinee. He introduces himself, telling her not to forget the name. Up until he fails miserably during the physical exam, she's more than welcome to erase it from memory. Ichikawa consoles Kafka. It might not be his age, but as it turns out, this year's examinees are all top talent from specialized schools and colleges. And the one sitting at the top? Kikoru Shinomiya. They still have the aptitude test, however, and it's been on kaiju removal for the past few years, which is why he signed up to work with Kafka's crew. So they both should have this one in the bag. The 3rd Division's Soshiro Hoshina will be heading the aptitude test. This year, their final test is to track down kaiju and subdue them. It looks like they changed it up this year. Both Kafka and Ichikawa are shook. Inside the facility, they are each given a suit utilizing organic biomatter from slain kaiju to increase the wearer's power output. Most of the applicants are between 10 and 20%, which is pretty good, apparently. Shinomiya. Well, she's at 46%, the highest of the group and perhaps even a record for a rookie at the academy. Hoshina notices Ichikawa's dismay towards his mere 8% and consoles him. The only number that would decrease your chances for success would be a 0%, which Kafka just so happens to score, sending the proctor into stitches. Shinomiya becomes annoyed. He should stop messing around and show her the crazy strength he used in the parking lot already. The examinees will be facing 36 Yoju and 1 Hanju, kitted with the Defense Forces' standard gear. If remote drones determine that they're in peril, they'll trigger a shield to save them, automatically failing them in the process. Shinomiya runs off on her own, literally on the side of buildings. Since the suit isn't doing him any favors, Kafka ditches the rifle for his sidearm. They aren't testing them solely on their kill count, but their ability to work as a team. Coming up on their first kaiju, Kafka recognizes that it's one with poor eyesight and tosses a flashbang to mess with its sensitive hearing. He tells the others to aim for the soft spot on its belly, which takes it down. With his knowledge, he can act as support for not very long. Another kaiju comes out of nowhere, taking Kafka by surprise. The proctor is about to deploy his shield when Shinomiya comes to his rescue. Despite recommending he retreat, Kafka refuses to go out like this and slowly gets back up, even with a broken leg. This is his last chance. He refuses to quit. Through pure determination alone, the power of his suit starts to climb, shocking the team monitoring the examinees. It hits a staggering 0.01%, a percentage-level increase of an incalculable amount. Kafka tells Ichikawa that he doesn't have to stay with him, but he refuses this notion, and ends up giving Kafka a piggyback, much to Hoshina's amusement. Meanwhile, Shinomiya continues stealing kills from everyone else, showing off in the process. After all 36 Yoju are taken care of, she heads towards the Hanju. Leaping off the sides of buildings, she gains enough speed to land in the beast's jaws, her feet propping open its mouth by resting on the teeth. She takes aim and fires directly down its throat, taking it down with one shot. Even Mina is taken aback by her abilities, and Hoshina can't believe everyone technically passed the exam. In the arena, Shinomiya gets ready to rub her score in Kafka's face, but as she turns to leave, a figure materializes from the fog behind her. She turns only to receive a projectile in her chest. Her eyes grow wide as she slinks down to the ground, unable to process what just happened. Elsewhere, the other kaiju begins to reanimate. Shinomiya isn't dead yet. The projectile barely misses her heart. She wonders aloud what the new anthropomorphic kaiju is, and it wonders back, just as surprised at her ability to move as she is at its ability to speak. She readies her rifle once more, but the kaiju is faster. It launches multiple projectiles at non-vital regions of her limbs in the hopes that she'll be eaten. Her blood curdling. Screams pierce the comms, and the proctors demand to know what's going on. They register the new life signs, which are somehow stronger than before. It's time they step in. Shinomiya tries to engage the kaiju again, but is quickly tossed aside. She's barely able to move, but is too stubborn to lose. As it turns out, her father is the director, which puts undue stress on her. To become a symbol of hope, she continues to stand and fight, becoming ever more desperate and even more injured. The kaiju regenerates organs on its head, which produce massive amounts of energy. It's obviously able to shoot laser beams from atop its head. Just when she's resigned all hope, Kafka appears in front of her, thanking her for buying enough time for evacuation, while he turns into his kaiju form. Ichikawa notices Kafka's absence and rushes off, fearing his secret coming to light. Kafka begs Shinomiya to not say anything to anyone. He'll explain everything after he deals with the blind laser-firing lizard. Hoshina and Mina receive an alert of another energy source, reading a 9.8. Either their tech is busted or it's the most powerful kaiju they've ever faced. Since he's got to beat this thing quick, he'll have to do it in a single blow, with half of his hands, with a right hook, with one punch. Man barely touches the thing and it explodes. He heads back to Shinomiya, glad to see she's okay, but he berates her for not counting on her teammates. Before he can finish, Ichikawa catches up and berates him for transforming. She passes out, and they decide to carry her back. When the proctors arrive, Hoshina recognizes the carnage from 3 months prior. Shinomiya might pull her punches, but there's no way she could have pulled this off. Mina eavesdrops on Kafka and Ichikawa before thanking them for carrying Shinomiya back. Hoshina decides to visit her and credits her for defeating the Hanju. She's hesitant at first but takes the credit, deciding to keep quiet. The anthropomorphic kaiju that shot her is shocked by a news source reporting no deaths. And who's Kaiju No 8? It answers the phone, morphing into a human. It turns out they're the newest member of the cleaning crew. Later on at work, both Kafka and Ichikawa get a letter in the mail. The following day is the ceremony to swear in those who passed the exam. Ichikawa shows up and meets Hiharu, who recognizes him as the old guy's friend. When Mina and Shinomiya show up, the captain swears her in as the top-scoring applicant, which serves to symbolically swear in the others as well, for a total of 27 officers. Though Shinomiya feels guilty about taking the glory and a bit annoyed that Kafka isn't there, just when she starts to get mad, he interrupts the whole ceremony. It turns out that Hoshina vouched for him, out of suspicion and as a source of entertainment. He's now a cadet in the vice captain's platoon. The others never expected him to pass. Mina gives a speech, and Kafka accidentally blurts out that he'll be standing at her side soon, just like they promised as kids. Hoshina bursts out in laughter, but when Hina addresses the cadet, she catches herself before calling him by his first name and reprimanding him before leaving without another word. Shinomiya approaches Kafka, wanting to talk, privately. She promises to keep his secret since he saved her life. It's basically like paying him back since the Defense Force wouldn't be too happy if they found out. But if he shows any signs of turning against humans, she'll end him herself. During target practice, a bunch of the newbies start rivalries with each other, trying to set PBs and raise their combat power. Despite the general competitive atmosphere, Kafka is psyched to even raise his unleashed combat power to 1%. But Hoshina tells him if he doesn't improve at a quicker pace, he'll be kicked out in 3 months. After some time bonding with the other newbies, Hoshina finds Kafka studying at night. Since he overheard him talk about knowing Mina as a kid, he assumes that the whole standing beside her means he's gunning for the position of vice captain, a challenge which Hoshina takes him up on. Instead of sending him to bed, Hoshina tosses him the keys to lock up when he's done. But before the VC can make his exit, the alarm bell rings. There's kaiju on the loose. A giant Hanju has shown up with a small army of Yoju, most likely able to self-reproduce. After the area is cleared of civilians, and it enters the neutralization area, the captain will take on the main kaiju, while the vice captain will lead the charge against the Hanju, with the rookies taking the rear. Ichikawa radios Kafka, asking if he's ready, more like pumped. The orders are given and the troops fall out, or off a roof, while Kafka shimmies down the side. The other officers complain about having to babysit and tell the newbies to hang back until they figure out the kaiju's weak spots. Screw that. Shinomiya blasts through a handful just to shut them up. Hiharu tries showing off but realizes Ichikawa is steadily surpassing him. He has to get better so that Kafka doesn't have to transform. As the kill count starts pooping up, Kafka feels useless. That is, until he realizes that they're severely lacking in intel. So, he decides to investigate the corpses, which is a piece of cake using his new suit. When he locates the core, he radios Hoshina to relay the information. But there's a problem. Each kaiju has its own reproductive organs, so if they don't destroy them, they might become overrun. After the info is forwarded to the entire force, he finally feels like he's contributing. Meanwhile, the captain is now in position holding a giant cannon. She gets the clearance to fire. Noticing Kafka in her peripheral, she remembers their promise and unleashes her first shot using 96% combat power. In just 2 shots, the colossal kaiju is already down. By the third, the creature is all but destroyed. She loads another round, telling them to give the order regardless, as if to prove something to Kafka. Hoshina tells Kafka he better be paying attention. If he wants to stand beside her, he's going to have to match that energy. Though the vice captain doesn't match her prowess with a gun, he's more inclined to smaller prey, being an expert swordsman. With the Hanju down, the rest of the Yoju are released. The mission has only just begun. Hoshina thinks it'll be good practice for the rookies, since most only reach between 20 and 30%, and half of them are already there. At least 2 candidates stick out: Shinomiya and Ichikawa. Iharu and Ichikawa are informed of a kaiju in their area, and they rush towards the source. But when they get there, they only see a man wearing a monster sweeper uniform. When they try to question him, he continues talking to himself. He was certain that adding reproductive organs would put a wrench in their plans. There must be someone with more knowledge of kaiju anatomy than he predicted. He turns to the 2 officers, wondering if they know anyone who fits the bill, as small spores bubble to the surface of his skin. Thank you guys for sticking till the end of this video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button for more videos like this. Cheers!